As you run queries in Microsoft Access, it may be useful on occasion to get a running total of the number of records that are returned in a query. For example, here where we've been running our query called 80s music in the previous lesson, it might be nice to see a total number of records that have been returned from our database based on some criteria that we set earlier on. Now we can go down to the status bar down here and see that we're at record 1 of 9, for example. So there's a total of 9 records returned in this query. But what if we want the total to show up maybe down here in the bottom row, so when we print the results we've got that total showing up right there? It's pretty easy to do, and I'm going to show you how. First of all, I'm using Music Library 6C, so go ahead and open that one up from your exercise files if you've got it, and you'll be all caught up. I've double-clicked on the 80s music query, so that's what you're seeing over here on the right hand side, the results of the 80s query. And if I go over to the design view by clicking the design view button here, you'll see that the criteria under the decade column is that we want all the songs where 80s shows up in the decade field. So when we run this or switch to datasheet view, we see those results. What we don't see is a total. And the total can show up at the very bottom here simply by clicking the Totals button up here in the Records section of our ribbon. So when I click on Totals, you'll see that the word total shows up here in the first column. And now I just simply have to select the field that I want to total up. In this case, it really doesn't matter which one I choose because I'm going to get a running total or a count of all of the records that show up here. So I'm going to click right in here next to a total under the year launched column. And I'm going to click the drop down, and you can see my options here are none or count. Now if it was a numeric field, I might be able to sum up numbers, for example, if I wanted to, or average them out. But here I'm going to click count, and right away you can see the number 9 shows up. So I'm going to click over here in another field so you can see that total. Now if we don't want the totals row, no problem, we just click the same button, the totals button, to turn it off. Next time we turn it back on, everything we set up earlier is still there, so we do see a running total of 9 records in our 80s music query. So that's all there is to running totals. Now we can get deeper into totaling up columns and groups and so on. We'll do that later on when we get into reports, and those reports can be based on a query that we set up.